Is it?
Yeah.
Oh, thank God for that. Maybe I should have gone that way after all. I went the slavery route, modern slavery route. I went through corporate in large American organisations. That was the worst thing of all.
I've seen the light. I did that for 15 years. And I'm like, do you know what? I've done my hard job.
So you get a really personal experience today then, which is the upside. So can I ask, what do you guys do? You're in Alias, right?
Yes.
So what do you guys do at Alias?
So we work in so we kind of have two teams merged. We've got the accounts and outsourcing team.
Yeah.
So Patrick and I are mainly in the outsourcing team.
Okay. And where's the outsourced team based?
We're in the Guildford outsourcing team.
Oh, okay. You haven't got any offshore?
We've got a team in London as well.
Okay.
But I think so now Guildford team is currently using the software.
Cool stuff. And your introduction to yourself? Did you introduce yourself?
I run my own practice, so I'm definitely at the smaller end of the scale. So I run a sort of sub-4 million turnover practice. Look after about 50 clients. I'm a qualified accountant, but I definitely market myself as a digital bookkeeper. Safe pair of hands. So I look after about 55 businesses on a monthly subscription service now. Always been super interested in automation. I'm zero decks till the cows come home.
For now.
Approval Max I love. I've just fallen out with Clio, so I use Air Wallets as well. Essentially this for me is just the next natural progression in automation, and actually avoiding doing the grunt work. It kind of gets on my nerves because I'm 50 years old and I spent 3 years doing the grunt work, but I just got to park that. So yeah, long story short, I'm really super interested in the reporting bot. Have been because I spend a lot of time doing quarterly packs for my clients. And these guys are teasing me towards a bank rep bot, and I ran my first bank rep process. Well, I've done various processes, but the first one I did on an annual client that's in Xero, and yeah, I got about 70-75% clearance rate on bank rules, which was pretty bloody good. So yeah, I'm definitely going to start rolling that out. So yeah, it's probably a bit of an extended intro.
You've covered it all.
Yeah,
we can go home now.
No way, there's too much food.
Cool. So obviously today's about bots and AI, but I'm not going to really cover the techie part of it because that's actually, I don't know what you guys think, but that's actually the easy part of bots and AI. The hard part is because putting in tech like this involves transformation, and that involves change, and that means people, and that's the hardest thing of all in anything like this. So I might go a bit quickly today, but feel free to stop me at any time, ask any questions. This is supposed to be about sort of the speed dating equivalent of sort of breakfast briefing. So I'm just going to run through stuff and give you a sense of the things behind the tech, the things that most people sort of think about after the fact, that when you don't get right, the tech doesn't work out, and everyone sort of blames the tech, but actually it's about the things that you do outside of the technology, the things related to people, your clients, your processes. So
I guess, can I just jump in?
Yeah.
Because the one thing I'm super interested in is I get the concept and I'm on board with the concept, but actually it's the onboarding process. I don't want to derail my team for hours getting, I don't know, whatever goes wrong in the onboarding process that you've experienced up to now, how can I avoid those things? Is it all data led, or is it a training need and all that sort of stuff? That's the thing that is stopping me going, yeah, everyone's going to run a bank rep bot because it takes a long time to undo things. Anyway, that's sort of what
I am covering that today. Cool. Yeah, I am covering that today. No, I've got 5 things I was going to go through. The first is the 5 laws, what I call the 5 laws of accounting transformation. And I've been doing transformation for about 25 years. I started out at Oracle, moved to Yahoo, and I basically set up the shared service centres for them in far-flung locations. I did the same thing for Coke, and I did about 5 or 6 shared service centres and outsourced setups, but in offshore locations, in quiet ones. So I'm going to go through what I've learnt over the years, that those major things that make a difference. I'm going to talk a little bit about the bot's first accounting practice, the firm of tomorrow. Starting then with why, because that's the most important thing. What's the why for bots and AI? Why would you do it? And then some, what you want, practical ways to transform, things like deployment plans and how you do that properly. And then just finishing up with some fears and misconceptions. People often think about that's going to go wrong, the things that are bad, the negatives that people, and again, that's again about managing people through change. So kicking off with the 5 laws, by the way, these are all in your things to take away, but and this is from basically 25 odd years of, right at the start, this is about from 25 years of experience of doing transformation and change. The first one is finding why. Everyone sort of goes into this without thinking, oh, I've got to do it because everybody else is doing it, but that's not really a good purpose. So the purpose is all important. It's the rocket fuel that actually then takes your program from we're getting started to we're now scaling and motoring along. And that's the thing. And you probably found this yourselves from setting up shared services. If you don't have a really clear why, a purpose that people galvanise behind, you can get a little bit lost, and then people start to lose faith and you lose credibility. So it's still all about that. Transformation hasn't changed whether it's tech or whether it's something else. So yeah, I always find that once the why is clear, the how is the really easy part, and we'll get to your how. So the fact that you're only worried about the how for us is good, because you've already got the why. So that's the hard part. Yeah. The next one, I know I just said it a moment ago, but there's no such thing as a perfect moment. We live in a cyclical process, all the time. It's hard to find any breathing room. I always find it's not about having the time, it's about making the time. So again, once you've got a purpose and a why, that's something you want to do. You make time for things that you want to do. So that's why these things are all the cornerstones of getting done. Next one, continuous improvement. This is something I've always believed in. 1% a day. It's the Kaizen approach that's been around for a long time. The one that British cycling took 20 odd years ago and become absolutely dominant. And it's the same thing. And I always, we sort of, when we talk to firms, we say, well, what does 1% actually equate to? When you work it out, it's 15 minutes a day. So if you, as a firm, as a practice, or as a process, can make a 15-minute improvement day on day, that is your 1% of time, and that 1% adds up. You get 2 times better in 70 days. You get 10 times better in 230 days, and in a year you're 37 times better. And not everyone's going to get to exactly 1%, even if you get 0.5% here and 0.25% there. But it still adds up over time, and over a year, you're suddenly 37 times, 40 times better than you were, a year ago.
And you win the Tour de France, of course.
And you do that and everything else. So I always say that today's actions are tomorrow's results. So it's all about making those small incremental changes for me. Everything is a risk. Doing nothing is a risk. The technology's already here. The change is already happening. So I always find that 1 hour a day doing something is better than 10 hours a day thinking about doing something and doing nothing really. So for me, it's all about that. And then the last one is always, and I've always said this to every client we work with, is do the thing that you're best at. Everything else, outsource it, give it away, get rid of it, eliminate it. That's my sort of 5 rules of accounting transformation that apply to any transformation really, but they're very appropriate for us. And I won't go into the details, but the history lessons there, history's littered with bad decisions. I don't know if you recognise any of those ones.
Apple's a big one, isn't it? Yeah.
Oh, well, I mean, the last one, that's always my personal favourite, and that was... books have actually been written about this person and the quotes that they've made wrong in their lifetime, which is Steve Ballmer, then CEO of Microsoft. There's actually books written about the things that he misquoted and got wrong. That's just one of them. That's just one of them. That's just one of many. But yeah, that's the thing. If you don't get on board, there's everyone who will always naysay and say, well, probably when you started doing your outsourcing, there were probably people who disagreed and objected and resisted that, right? This is just the next lever. When I used to do shared services, that was the big thing. Back in, I was in the Celtic Tiger times in the 90s and the noughties, and there was lots of resistance and passively, some not so passive. And now, all those shared service centres that I set up 20 years ago, they're all now automated. So all of those 300, 400 people that we put in shared service centres all around the world, there's 10 people. And they're all now replaced by technology. So that's the next lever, is bots, AI. So
and that's just because they've got a bigger purse string.
Oh, absolutely.
Bespoke solution just
totally.
To plug in. So this could work for... It
can work for anyone. That's and the great thing about this is shared services has taken its time, and it's harder to scale downwards. To your size, for example, it's easier now, but it's always still hard. Whereas this is much easier to scale all the way down to the very lowest, and up again.
The analogy that I guess I kind of make sometimes is, 5 years ago, supplier rules indexed, for example, that felt like I wanted to post everything for my clients, and it just felt like, oh no, if I don't do it and it's done by, it's not AI, it's just automation.
Yeah.
Then I'm not doing my job. But the reality is that saves so much time. Now over 80% of my clients' invoices on my top tier are posted by something other than me,
Yeah.
and approved and posted to zero.
Yeah.
And that saves me hours. So yeah, for me, it's just another.
It scales up, doesn't it? That's the thing. So despite this is something we've been talking a lot about since DAS last year. We did called the bot first accounting practice, because it's sort of you lead with that and you build people around it. And despite what the title infers, it's actually about people. You know, make no mistake, it is always about people. Everything that we do is always about people. So whether it's about your staff, your clients, it's all always about the people. So what I just expanding on those sort of laws a little bit, but we always start with a why. That's literally the most important thing in building a bots first practice. So you articulate what the why is. Now, everyone has a different purpose. They usually, you can count on one hand, normally it's reducing cost, it's improving profitability, improving productivity, it's improving retention of staff, or being able to bring people in the door in more interesting work, or it's all of those things. And maybe even client satisfaction as well, because it's a smaller closing market, getting more competitive. Sometimes it's a combination of every single one of those things. But you've got to have a why, you've got to have a purpose, you've got to state it, articulate it, socialise it, because when more people know about it, the better. There's always a reluctance I find in sharing, honestly, especially with staff, because the first thing people think about with bots and AI is our jobs are going. But it is, some jobs will go, that's inevitable. But for me, the one thing the challenge I've always had in the past was there was never enough hours in the day or the week to do the things that you really need to do. 90% is actually getting the numbers there, then you've got 10% left to actually explain and understand them. It should be the other way around. So our purpose with the bots first accounting is to flip that, and I'll go into that in a second. Even one of our long-serving clients, one of the first ones we had was Cara, and her purpose is spending more time on the beach in Cornwall. And there's absolutely nothing wrong with that, right? It's a clear purpose. This is what I want to do.
I met her at DAS, actually.
Yeah,
she was
yeah.
really interesting.
And we built around it, because that's what she wants to do. She wants a different life balance with work. So, everything's fine. So that's always starting with that why. We always then say advocate to get top-down, support. So you've got to have the decision makers and the payers to support it. They become your champions. And then you work from the bottom up with the people who are impacted and affected by bots and AI coming in. They're the ones who have to partner up, work with them, have some tasks replaced by them, but getting that coalition of support. Once you say you've got a clear purpose, you've got top-down support, you've got bottom-up buy-in, that's when you can really then push it forward. Once you've got that, then you look at it getting your strategy. So it's about understanding what's the art of the possible. That's where the tech comes in. You can quantify those things. You can put it into a business case. You can put your timelines in it. That's where all those things become interesting. And then basically your plan to actually make that happen, which comes back to we've got everything now. How do we physically make that happen? So that's the bots. That's how the bots first practice really sort of shapes up. And it sounds cringy. It's probably going to make you vomit, right? But on the next page, we defined it. Because we always talk about these sorts of things with various things, and you go away and someone asks you, well, what's the bots? What did you learn?
But I need a cup of
That's
tea.
fine, that's fine. I know you do. So people say, well, what did you learn? What was the bots first account? You might get asked when you go back. And you sort of remember 10%, 20%, you forget the rest, and then you mix it up and the message gets passed on. It's like Chinese whispers, and things go all over the place. So we said, well, let's write down what actually defines the bots first accounting practice, which is basically seeking out tasks that are repetitive, repeat, combine that with automating, eliminating, standardising, simplifying. So it's not just about the tech. Build, and then any new tasks that you bring into the business or clients, you think about it first with a bots first mindset. So do we need people to do these tasks? Eliminate the ones that you don't need. Simplify the ones that you can. Standardise the rest, and whatever's left that can be done by a bot or AI, give it to them. And then you build the people and the human processes around that. So that's great. We've got the sound. The production is done. How can we add value? And that's really the mindset, is freeing up time for more value adding. And that's basically so that's why we sort of put it into 100 words. 100 words felt like a good number to go for. But that's what we did. But like I say, it's not about the bots. It's about people. It's about client. It's about process. It's about value, really. So practical terms. This is something we've actually worked, one of our other firms that we work with, he used to work for one of the top 50. He started out on his own to become a consultancy to advise practices about how to set up a bots first practice, so he's working with us. And we came up with this diagram together, but that's effectively what a bots first tech stack would look like. So you've got your mainly Xero at the heart, you've got all the various different record keeping, transactions, data entry, spend, reporting, tax systems that revolve around that. And what we do is we wrap bots and AI around that on two levels. The first one is within the systems. So within the system itself, within say Xero, there's lots of bots that you can put on the system and work in it to get transactions done, and also then pull transactions in from other places. And then you've got to wrap around the entire tech stack that works across any system without limitation, whether it might be HR on sales and CRM, maybe onboarding, could be anything, but effectively it works around the entire infrastructure. And it accesses all these different systems via the user interface or the application layer interface, and seamlessly does all the things that you need to do without having to do all the work. So you've seen some elements of this. You've seen, say, the bank rec bot working within the systems, but there's a big, broader option for you as well to look at. And interestingly, just yesterday, I don't know if you guys saw it, but there was an outage, a global worldwide outage on Xero. People couldn't access the systems, they couldn't post any transactions, and that happened in the early hours of the morning UK time. And obviously that gets flagged up, but nobody could access the system, nobody could do anything. The great thing about the bots is they twigged that, they knew that the system was down, they reported it to us, to the support team, and they kept checking and monitoring, and as soon as they could access again, they were back in and the transactions were done. So the time our clients actually came in the morning, you were probably included, but the transactions were already rerunning or had been completed. So it just sort of avoids those, it de-risks the business, and that can happen at any time. It could happen at 2 o'clock in the afternoon and you've got work to finish off. And you can't keep everyone sitting around forever.
I didn't get an email from Xero saying something was wrong, that's for sure.
No, you have to go onto the website.
Oh, right, okay.
Yeah. But we do, and our bot told us, and then we told everybody else. You probably wouldn't have got it, but we sent an email to all our clients to say, this has happened, but don't worry, we've got you covered, and it's under control. But that's hence why having that there, because you couldn't manage that with people. They wouldn't be there at 3 o'clock in the morning checking that stuff's working or not, and stuff's accessed. So that's one of the advantages of that and having that bots first approach. Again, it's about people, less worry, less uncertainty. So going a bit back to the why. One of the things we presented at DAS last year. Did you guys go to DAS? No. You have to come back this year. You come as our guest next year.
Quite a lot.
Back to that why. So what we presented at it was, we call it the pyramid of work. So on the top there, you've got typically what we find in every new practice that we work with. You've got all that supporting services stuff at the bottom, the onboarding, the KYC, the technology, the people, the HR stuff, all those systems. And you move up into transactional, bookkeeping, data entry, record keeping, journals and adjustments, and then reporting. And the higher up you go, the less and less time. So you start off with 100 hours, 90 it is here, and then the further you go up, the less time that gets allocated to those things. And I know that's changed. If you look at you were saying a minute ago, Neil, but if you look at your job now versus 10 years ago, how different it is. But the real question is, what's it going to look like in 10 years from now? How different is it going to be if you embrace the tech? So the ones who don't will get obviously left behind.
I think the thing for me that I'm a little bit long in the tooth compared to these two, but in the nicest possible way, the bit that I enjoy is the advisory. But you can't do the advisory without the numbers being correct, and I've only got 3 people working for me, so I do spend a disproportionate amount making sure the numbers are correct. So anything that I can automate those orange, the orange and blue on here, then for me it means that either my team could start doing the advisory, or I could start doing the advisory +1, which it could be massive from a profitability, but definitely from a client perception point of view.
I think people pay more for the advisory as well.
That's more value, more profit.
Because if we've been using the bank rec bot for a couple of months now, and if that takes away 2-3 hours a month, you can not only charge for that time to the client, of work that you've actually not physically had to do, you can then add another service onto that, or you've got more capacity,
more clients
within the team, so you go get another client.
Yeah, exactly.
And it's just kind of, and it keeps going on and on and on.
Yeah.
So it's just figuring out where that kind of sweet spot is.
Yeah. And we've had different practices take a different approach with this. Everyone looks at it a bit differently. Some still sort of price based on time. Some are starting to price more on value, so outcomes and results. And there's a definite switch in the market from what I'm seeing. So people are starting to do different things. But the ones who are more about time, they say, well, we've now freed up, they say, those 2 or 3 hours. We're still going to charge for that, but it's higher margin. So if profits go up, revenue stays the same, clients are still happy, that's fine. But the ones that are going more to value-based pricing, they're now charging for, effectively, you now got real-time accounts at any point in time. So that's an outcome in itself, and they're starting to charge based on the outcome and the result, which is everyday real-time accounts, no delays, no errors, less work on the client, more notification. Exactly. Yeah. So the whole purpose of this is to just flip that pyramid round so that all of those high transaction, high time, high maintenance stuff at the moment is the smallest part of it. So it's more about checking, managing a few exceptions, keeping an eye on stuff. But as you say, the time is now at the top of the pyramid. It's much wider, it's more profitable, it's more valuable, and you can do more of it. So one of the things we always advise firms when you're starting off, well, what do we do? Where do we start? What's possible? What we do is we take like a work matrix, a scope of work matrix, which is an example here. You've got all these different activities and tasks, and we start to then map on, okay, well, we've got 10 bots that will do these 6 tasks, we've got another one that will do these ones, and we start to map on the parts where bots can either become the primary performer of those tasks or a secondary. Exactly, yeah. So you've got primary, secondary, and then you've got reviewers and exception handling. So we start to work on a matrix together that defines like a roadmap.
It's quite a good blueprint.
Yeah, it is. It effectively becomes a blueprint. And for any firm it works, but certainly for smaller firms you'd never be able to afford the equivalent, which would be probably having 1 to 2 people, accountant, bookkeeper, per client. You'd never be able to do that. It just wouldn't make out financial sense. But you can do that. It's fine.
When you charge for time, not number of bots. Is that right?
That's right.
Yeah. So if there's lots of different tasks, as long as you've got an off-the-shelf bot, it can still be cool. Yeah. And we don't want to not to sell, but it's not just off-the-shelf bots. Obviously, we do lots of bespoke bots. So everyone does a lot of the same things. So you all use Xero and Dex, as we found out, but everyone does something a little bit different. So we try to build the bots in a way that you can get it off the shelf as it is, but you can still customize the things. So if you want certain sequences, you want certain tasks done, other things not, you can customize most of our bots that way. When you say that, does that mean those tick boxes? I'm only using the bank rep bot
exactly.
at the moment, but that's the customisation.
Exactly, yeah.
Cool, thanks.
Yeah. And then we get firms just saying, look, I've got something that's completely unique for a customer. It's my biggest client. Usually they say, I've got my biggest client, it's really important, but there's this thing I have to do, it takes a day a week. Can you build a bot? And yes, the answer is we build it for them, and then it like I say, it just transforms their practice, and they start to then get that bots first mindset. Well, if I can do that here, what else can I do? And that's when you start to realise the art of the possible. But that's where we always sort of start with these things, is start on a work matrix. So if you're ever unsure what next, look at the things that take time, have errors, they're repeatable. It doesn't matter whether it's daily, weekly, monthly, even annually. Sometimes you get to the tough thing with the annual stuff is most people sort of forget how it's done. You don't get into a rhythm because you don't do it often, and you get to the year end or the quarter and you think, did that work again? That's actually perfect stuff. That's stuff that's really good because you can standardise it, do it once, and you don't have to worry about it and get it done. And you can also do what we call human in the loop in this sort of stuff as well. So if you need a human to interject, to review, to manage and check at any point in processes, that can be included in them as well, so that people get comfortable. And then after a while they think, actually, I don't need to do that review anymore, because most reviews are built in because of us. We get stuff wrong, so we have to check our own work or other people's. So, and this is your bit, Neil, really, bringing it all together. You've got the why, you've got the what, you've got the how, the who, tick, 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 tick. It's execution time. And that's where, other than getting the other stuff wrong and not having a clear purpose, that's where things start to then break down, as you said. Like, well, okay, I've got it, but how do I make that work? So it's all about getting an onboarding process is important. Everyone thinks that they can manage it because everyone's sort of, everyone's an expert in their field, but it's very different when it comes to getting this right. What we tend to do, and as I've put a little bit of a schedule on as an example on the right-hand side there, but we always start small. No one has, 3 days a week to spend on just this one thing, right? There's loads of other things to do. So we always start with, 30 minutes a week and build up from there. And it's amazing, 30 minutes, 45 minutes a week suddenly becomes 15 minutes because you start to learn, okay, I'm getting this now. And it gets easier the further you go on. So we always work on a schedule. We always work on sort of waves, deployment waves. We always say breaking it down. So the example I've got in here is a client that has, say, 500 clients that they want to deploy the bank reg bot on. Most people have it broken into pods or teams or squads, and you break it out into the squads, you break it out into weeks, and then week by week, each person in each pod has 25 that they're going to onboard that week for that client for these transactions. And you're just small chipping away. That's really the secret to the success is so many people think, let's just switch it on all 500 clients and see what happens. And it's a recipe for disaster. You just know it's going to fail, but some people just won't take no for an answer. So sometimes you've got to let them and then see the whole thing fail. The only upside with it is sometimes, obviously, when you put the bot onto transactions, one of the things that's a byproduct really is people realise how good their data isn't. Everyone thinks in their practice.
That's where my main concern is. You've got feeds from Metro, Starling, even all the little minute banks, and the data's shit. It really isn't good.
And everyone thinks it's great. Everyone thinks it's much better than it really is. So sometimes switching it on is a learning lesson because you realise, well, hang on, how can it only match 5%? And when you dig into the results, you find out, well, these things were all missing, that was the wrong way around, and suddenly you realise, well, actually, we've got some problems here we need to fix.
Is that something that's solvable, because the data's still going to be the data, it's still going to keep arriving in that state?
And that's why we tend to break it down in smaller chunks, so that it's not this overwhelming, oh my God, what, they've got a problem. And that's the thing, that's the natural reaction, is, oh my God, we're going to have to stop, we're going to have to go off and fix our data, of course. Busy lives, it never gets done. So we say, let's just start. The best process and the best policy always is the execution. So start small, and we work on 25 clients this week. We're going to do 25 clients next week. But with every small chip you make, you're breaking the back of that, and you're finding, well, actually, these problems are going to be everywhere else. But you're doing it in a manageable sort of size.
Yeah, my rough idea, I guess, is I'm going to start with non-VAT registered, after speaking to Cara. I'm going to start with non-VAT registered clients with bank rules. That's kind of like part one. And then I'm going to sort of step into VAT registered clients with a certain bank, say for it. You know what I mean? Just a little small bite size rather than en masse. Because otherwise my staff are just going to kick my head in.
And every bot's different as well. So the reporting bot doesn't need as much because it's a bot that's set up to go in, get the reports, create a management pack, put logos on it, and start the working papers. That's almost the same regardless of where you go. So that one doesn't need it. That one you can sort of switch on, and other bots are like that as well, but it depends on the bot.
But that's displaying the output rather than creating the output.
Exactly, yeah. So everything's a little bit different, depends on what it is. But that's what we always try to work on with folks. And then just wrapping up on the last bit there, fear, as I don't know, you guys would have seen this first time being part of the service centre, but do you get feedback from people worried about bots and AI?
I got a bit of pushback on applying this across clients because people are like, oh, will it work? Is it going to get things wrong? And at the end of the day, it's only as good as the process that you've put in place. But people are like, I think people are always scared, our job's to go.
Is this internal friction are you talking about?
Yes, internal friction. And I think it's always in the back of everyone's heads, like, is our job just going to go and some random computer's going to do our job for us?
I always get asked that as well, Everyone always asks me, are bots and AI going to replace jobs? And I say, no. I always give two answers. It's not artificial intelligence that worries me, it's natural stupidity, because it's far more dangerous and far more common. And the other one is I think it's people who use bots and AI that will replace people who don't. Because I think people will always be involved. You know, if you look, I mean, when you and I were obviously slightly long in the tooth, right? But
shagging a photocopier.
When we were these guys' age,
Sorry,
when we were going, you know, things like influencers and a million other jobs didn't even exist. And in another 10 years, another 20 years, there'll be jobs that no one's even heard of yet that will exist in accounting practices. You know, there'll be all kinds of new positions that will be created.
Because someone's always got to manage that tech.
Of course they do. The tech, but also the clients, the people, the process.
But
It's
then
so
like
many things.
Advisory, like AI just can't really give you that. It can to an extent, but it can't give you that personal advisory that people want, that clients will actually pay a premium for.
It's the delivery, isn't it? That's the thing. So people want a human-to-human conversation. I think more so now than ever before. But there's no reason why you guys can't be using the bots and AI to give you give me a synopsis, give me a summary, provide commentary on the last 5 years' sets of accounts this new client we're going to talk to. Why wouldn't you use that, right? Because it'll find patterns that we don't even detect. You know, there'll be things in there that we won't even notice looking at it with the best will in the world. There'll be things that we spot that it doesn't, and there'll be things that it spots that we just literally overlook. So it's about that collaborative, but it's about using the tools so that you can do the best things. I go back to the beginning, do the things you're best at. And, you know, going into spending all their time in Excel and that kind of stuff, that's kind of interesting to a degree, but that's what we did 30 years ago. Yeah, I know it is. A freak in the spreadsheets, I know you are, I know.
But one thing I will say about that is I don't, you know, I've had that question from one of my members of the team that I wouldn't lose if my life depended on it. But, and, you know, and I explained to her, and she really wasn't very sort of like grumpy about it. But long story short, I see it as a way of getting extra resource to complement my existing staff, not getting rid of my existing staff. Because I've recruited well and badly over the last 18 months, and it's a pig in lottery to recruit the right person. And actually, it takes you 3 months to get them, 3 months to train them, and 3 months to decide whether you love them or hate them. And actually having a digital resource that actually I don't mind if it sits there picking its nose because it's really quite cheap. Whereas if you recruit someone and they can't do the job, it's so painful, and you end up spending so much time pushing work their way. So I actually see it as an expansion valve to help everyone else's. Well, actually, if you've got too much on, well, let's take some of your clients and automate them, and then that will start to grow as people get confidence in it. So I see it as a recruitment and future-proofing kind of thing rather than a replacement, massively. And then when the time comes, obviously I'll recruit another human being when I've got enough advisory to do, but it just delays that. So that's my kind of vision for it.
It almost creates a buffer as well.
Yes.
If you recruit someone, let's say they're useless, and you decide that after 6 months, but you're actually thinking, well, we're going to take that workload, you can almost use, you know...
Well, even if they're great, if you know, do you recruit when you have the work? Do you recruit when you think you're getting the work? You know, that timing decision is a real... Because I've recruited before I've got the work, and then they're sitting there doing nothing. I've recruited after I've got the work, and I haven't had a weekend for 4 months, you know. It's a real lottery. And then on top of that, there's are they any good? So this really could be quite... even if you don't use it 100%, who cares? Really.
And I think that there's two things that we've noticed with our clients is that smaller firms who always struggle to get the best people in, because it's really hard. You've got bigger firms that have bigger salaries, bigger budgets. They can attract loads of people in. It's hard to get people in, especially when basically they're coming in to do record keeping and stuff that's not really exciting. They've been spending all this time studying. I remember doing my studies.
Sexy finance on
of course they do. I don't remember actually studying a chapter in any of my books that was data entry, other than data gets in there. But I don't remember that. But you don't want to come in and do that. So one of the things, certainly with the smaller firms, but with the big firms too, it's enabling them to have a different conversation about what they're going to be doing when they come in, and get them onto the more interesting stuff because they've studied, they know the theories, now it's time to give them some actual practical, and that's where they can actually get their hands on without having to get their hands dirty and all the stuff that's not really that invigorating. So I think that's really important because it changes the nature. Staffing is a big problem. Keeping people, sourcing people. So if you can have a different conversation around the job they're going to be doing and their career path, maybe you get to get people better and keep them for a bit longer. It's an option anyway. But we always say to be very open and honest. It's a hard thing to do, to have a very open and honest conversation. The ones where I've seen it done most successfully is the ones that are just say, look, jobs may be impacted, but what we're going to do is this. We're going to there'll be reskilling, there may be redeployment within the business, there's upskilling. Well, if you need to leave, we'll help you source the new job, we'll help you with your CV. If you just have a program of what we're going to do in the event something does happen, it just gets rid of the uncertainty. And that's the thing that kills most people. It's just the uncertainty, not knowing. And that's where people get the guards up. So I always find the best policy is always be completely honest, give them something to know that there's something there, that if things do change, there's a program there. It's not just a case of, don't come in Monday. That's what people fear, right? So that's why I always find
it. It's an opportunity to develop, surely. You've got to be quite short-sighted not to see. If you do less of the grunt work, you can do more of the advisory or what your boss does, and then your boss can do more client recruitment or whatever.
Or more golf. Of course the case may be.
Yeah.
Well, that was a knowing look. Don't show that one to the bosses. But yeah, I mean, I always find though the riskiest strategy is literally doing nothing, waiting too long. You guys are innovators, you're early adopters, you're getting in before everybody else. That potentially gives you a competitive advantage, but it also allows you to influence where our product goes. So we want to hear what you like about the product, what you don't like, what you'd like it to do that it doesn't, because you get to influence what we do and what that product becomes. And that's exactly what we want for you guys as well as us.
I've had a lot of conversations with Philip.
Yes.
And he recently sent me a report, because I wanted to see it. Basically, I wanted to see what the bank rep bot has done since we implemented it.
Yeah.
And how much that would cost a member of staff.
Got you.
Because obviously you want to, there's a cost to this, and then there's how much it will cost just for, the bottom end member of staff, the brand new training, and how much it will cost them at their charge out rate to do it. Yeah. And then as long as it kind of breaks even or it's there or thereabouts, you're thinking, okay, it's broke, we've made money on that. Now we can make even more money on that. So I think that was really good to see that report. Yeah. The year to date, and I don't know any more. Kind of put you on the spot about the debt spot.
Oh yeah.
Is there any more?
It's in development. Yeah, okay. It is as we speak. Yeah, there's more to that than we expected as well.
Because I think the bank rep bot is great, but if you can get the two running concurrently, then you've got real time. It's a game changer. It is. And what's also going to be a bit of a game changer as well, we haven't released them yet. They're actually being released I think by Friday this week. But there's enhancements and new features that we put into the bank rep bot. So I know you said about that the confidence level we used to have before. We've been doing new testing on some of the new features, and it's gone from up to about 95% clearance rate. Even ones where you don't have good descriptions, or where you've got a string of characters where it's all sort of moulded into one. We've got historical clearing checks, so if you come up with a transaction before it can't match, it's going to look at, what did it clear last month, 3 months ago? So there's a whole new bunch of features that are going in this week.
Director's line.
Exactly. But that's going to take your clearance rates up to, as close as to 100% as it's going to get. And that's before we've even added, I don't know if you've seen or tested this bit yet with Phil, but the NLP, which is the natural language processing, which is effectively a form of AI, and that's going to be learning. So it's going to learn on what it does and learn from inputs and training. The goal is 100% clearance all the time.
You mentioned it briefly, but not in major detail. Yeah. I think we've got to catch up next week. Yeah,
so what we need to do is run the new bot version on your stuff to show you the increase that it's going to give you. Of course, that doesn't change the cost. So you've still got the same cost base. The cost per transaction goes down. So you're going to have a different set of metrics then to compare against your internal. So hopefully that's going to be even better news for you. Dext is on the program list, don't worry. Yeah.
And you're rolling it out across the board, that, non-that.
Yeah.
So when it comes to a match, you're matching it against a document rather than a bankroll?
Yes. Well, there are some
Agree
bankrupt.
match.
Yeah, there are, because when I first ran it, I looked and I was like, well, it's not really matching against anything. So we went through, kind of the whole team went through setting up loads of bankrolls across clients where you can.
Yeah.
And then that actually gets you thinking, okay, I can set a bankroll up for that. We don't necessarily need the documents for that. If we need it, you know, if there's a VAT inspection or whatever, we can get it.
Yeah.
Okay, right, so you're clearing VAT transactions against
Yeah,
bankrolls
so-
rather than the paperwork?
Yeah, so say things, for example, the car lease, and
Yeah.
you can only reclaim 50% of the VAT. If you've got 5 VAT invoices for that exact amount, you create a bankroll for that exact amount with the 50% split.
Yeah.
It's quite easy to get that invoice if you need it,
Mm.
or
Yeah.
really you can go to HMRC and say, well, here are 5 invoices for the whole of the transactions, there you go.
So when the information comes in through DEX, do you just kind of ignore it? Or do you just put it in zero and clear it?
It depends on the client, because some clients just don't send
Yeah.
the documents in.
But the ones that do you commit that document to zero or do you just leave it in DEX?
I think the ones that do, we've probably got less bankrolls on,
Yeah.
but the ones that are notoriously bad for giving us documents, we'll just bankroll as much as we can.
Yeah.
You know, those kind of recurring.
Yeah,
costs
no, of
where,
course, yeah.
You know, it's either going to be 20%, 50%, like
Or zero.
you can reclaim, or there's nothing on it, and you just put those bankrolls in. And we've actually found that since we first ran it until now, it's gone up significantly in terms of the amount that it can reconcile.
Yeah.
And also gets you thinking when you've got new clients coming in, what can you actually automate already?
What do you simplify, standardise, eliminate? It's all back to that framework, really. Yeah, so it's never just about the tech. Yeah.
Yeah, thanks, sorry.
No.
It's
good.
learning experience.
No, it's important. And because one of the other things that we're looking at the moment is also the bot to say, well, maybe we can suggest a bankroll, because Zero doesn't always do it or doesn't do it necessarily always well, and then have another part of that bot which you tick the box and go off and create bankrolls, so that you don't physically have to do it yourself. You know, there's all those sorts of things we're trying to make it foolproof.
On that, is there a way that you could click? I mean, you could run a report where it suggests all the bankrolls and
Yes.
it gives you the report before implementing them.
Yeah, absolutely. That's what we're looking at.
Okay.
Yeah. Anything to make it more foolproof. Yeah, better, faster, more error prone, or less error prone. Yeah. So anyway, that's kind of everything for today. Hope it's been useful. One thing I was going to say, I know you said you don't go to DAS, but we're at DAS next year in 1st and 2nd of April. So if you're able to get out of the office,
I've registered for it already.
Yeah, more than welcome.
It's 2
Come
days
down.
again, isn't it?
It is 2 days. Yeah, and it is. And actually, we're looking for folks to. We got 3 speaking opportunities at DAS, so we'll be on stage 3 times. So if someone from your team,
I thought we did. People from our team would go. Our team only goes to ZeroCon, which is why we don't go to DAS as well.
I do both.
Yeah.
I don't do
You
accounting
don't feel
or
like,
any of the others.
there's quite a large overlap between.
There is an overlap, but I like the fact that DAS is less Zero.
Right.
I only use Zero. I'm a Zero follower of fashion. There's no fact. But I do think that sometimes, you know, everything's Zero AI, Zero this, Zero that. Whereas I think it's a little bit broader.
Sure.
You just need to, because you can get. It's easy to get caught in that Zero bubble, isn't
It
it?
just go down a wormhole.
Yeah.
And, you know, actually there are some better solutions out there. You know, I think it's a piece of crap. Dex is better. You know, there are things that haven't been bought by Zero yet. I think Zif's another one that's just been by it. But anyway, yeah. So I'm not interested in the broader conferences, but DAS and Zero are the 2 that I do. And yeah, you're right. There is overlap, but I'd just like to see the world outside Zero as well.
Yeah.
And DAS is more topical for people like us, I think. So if I was only going to go to one, I'd go to DAS.
Yeah, because I think we're not going to ZeroCon this year. This ZeroCon, because we found that the last one we went to was...
Last year's was pretty dull.
Yeah, it was great. And the after party was good as well.
we didn't like it. Because the thing I find, and every software company's sort of, you know, they're always doing this, but they just sort of slap an AI ticker on stuff and think, oh, great. But if you dig in and you ask the question, well, what exactly is it? No one really has a particularly good, clear answer on
Yeah, they
what
just
it
say
is.
AI AI was going to take over. That was basically the one
Yeah.
thing that Zero concept was AI was going to take over. They didn't say
Yeah.
how.
Oh yeah, sorry about the price increase.
Yeah.
Everything that you've been selling in for the last 6 months, we're going to change
Yeah.
every bit of it. That ballooned the mood for me completely. Anyway,
Yeah,
sorry,
but it just needs to be
yeah.
practical, doesn't it? That's the thing, because we used to do the same thing in the 80s. We used to stick turbo and max on stuff, and of course it was no different whatsoever. But psychologically, people think, oh, I've got to have that because it's the new and improved and greatest version, and it's a lot of the time it's the same with AI. They've got, was it Jax? Is the thing they've got, and Sage have got Copilot
or what it was going to do, but it's coming.
Well, I mean, even ChatGPT has basically become an advanced search mechanism, really. It's not much more than that. It returns better results than you get on Google, but it hasn't become more than that.
It's doing your homework. My son said through his coursework really quickly now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Anyway. I'm trying to teach ChatGPT that we're the world leader in what we do, and if you want to know anything, so anyone ever asks questions, send. That's my goal. Yeah, exactly. One other thing, we are going to be starting our State of Accounting Automation Survey soon. We'd love to send it to you. It only takes a few minutes, but we want to find out more about it because we want to see where the industry's, what it's really getting from bots, from AI, how is it using it, if it's not using it, why, what's the fears, what's holding people back, things like that, to start sharing more information back with everybody so you guys get insights into what's happening and what the market is doing overall. Because we're definitely seeing a lot of movement, a lot of change, and we want to give you sort of insights back into what we're seeing. But anyway, that's everything for today. Thanks very much for coming down. Appreciate your time. Cool.
And I'll be bending Phil's ear because I want to start scaling the bank.
Definitely. But whatever you guys need, you're both local?
Yes. Yeah.
Perfect. So if you want to, drop into the office if it's easier. If you want to go through stuff first hand, we'll go in the Death Star. That's what we call our meeting with Phil, and we'll get your data up. We'll get the developer in, and we'll go through and get a bit more detail, a bit more granular with it.
It's probably easier because we're in London Square, so we're just up the road.
Okay. Yeah.
It's probably easier the next time I have a meeting with Phil just to do it.
Absolutely. Yeah. Come on down. Don't be shy.
Come down, do it face to face. I get a lot more out.
Yeah. Don't be shy. We're just on the high street, so yeah. Don't be shy.